welcome to episode 5 of Conspiracize Me. On this episode, of course, I'm in a series of something that is somber. It takes a lot of people by storm. It either makes you very angry or unfortunately very excited. And it is the topic of assassinations. We're going to cover John F. Kennedy. What happened? What were the facts of the event? And ultimately, what was the verdict? And what are the missing pieces? If you hear the term assassination, the first thing that you think of, in most cases, is JFK, President of the United States, so very high profile. Yet, there's just a lot of chatter still out there about who the real killer was, who's behind it all. So on this episode of Conspiracize Me, I am going to look into what we are told and see what more we could piece together, and if I can be conspiracized to believe a story that is not readily told to the public. The question I am posing to ChatGPT: what is the publicly or lawfully accepted story of JFK's assassination? And what are the conspiracy theories that claim to explain the truth, the official narrative? The date is November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas. Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Oswald's fingerprints were allegedly found on the rifle. Witnesses reported shots from the depository. Oswald fled the scene and later killed police officer J.D. Tippit. The Warren Commission, 1964, concluded Oswald acted alone, determined Jack Ruby also acted alone when he killed Oswald 2 days later. Oswald kills JFK, and then Ruby, who kills Oswald. Major JFK assassination conspiracy theories. The first, the multiple shooters grassy knoll theory. Some witnesses reported shots from that direction. Film appears to show JFK's head snapping backward. Counterpoint. Ballistic reconstructions argue the head movement can be explained by neuromuscular reaction and momentum. No weapon or confirmed shooter was found on the grassy knoll. Okay, if no weapon was found on the grassy knoll, would it be logical that the shooter took the weapon and ran away? The second conspiracy theory claims the CIA either orchestrated or allowed the assassination. Motives suggested: JFK's fallout with the CIA after the Bay of Pigs, his desire to reduce CIA power, tensions over Vietnam and Cuba, why it persists, known CIA surveillance of Oswald before the assassination. So if they were watching him, why couldn't they stop him? Conspiracy theory number 3, the mafia theory. Organized crime figures had JFK killed. Attorney General Robert Kennedy aggressively prosecuted the mafia. Mob anger over lost Cuban casino interests after Castro. Jack Ruby's known mob connections. Was Oswald part of the mob? Why would someone from the mob kill their own? I guess it happens all the time. Theory number 4, Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ theory. Vice President LBJ benefited and may have been involved. Policy reversals after JFK's death. The vice president orchestrated to take him out? If you're going to be sworn into office with someone, I doubt that you would do that if you had such differences of opinion. Theory number 5, Soviet or Cuban involvement. Oswald defected to the Soviet Union. He was outspokenly pro-Castro, which John F. Kennedy was anti-Castro. And theory number 6, the deep state. JFK threatened entrenched power structures, military, intelligence, and financial interests. Okay, so we just went through 6 of these theories. A majority of Americans believe some form of conspiracy occurred. There's not a consensus as to what conspiracy that might be. Historically, JFK remains one of the most investigated events in U.S. history. This occurred 62 years ago. No alternative explanation has met the evidentiary standard to overturn the official conclusion. The fact that it was just one person, I think, is nonsense. I think it's very strange that Oswald was killed 2 days later by a man who was part of the mafia, when if the mafia had their own troubles and disagreements with JFK, why would they kill the man who killed JFK? And then the CIA, if they had their surveillance on Oswald, knew that he was in position or he was a person of interest who could bring harm to the president, why was he not acted upon? You can go a million ways. Just the conspiracy theories that have been provided. But I want to start here with Lee Harvey Oswald. So I have a few questions of my own. Give more background on Lee Harvey Oswald and why he is the only one officially found responsible for the assassination of JFK. What is the one bullet theory if he supposedly shot 3 bullets? What does it mean that he defected to the Soviet Union if he supposedly worked for the depository? What, if any, are his ties to the mob? And who is Jack Ruby and why did he kill Lee Harvey Oswald? Also, why did Oswald kill Officer Tippit? This is the spine of the JFK story. If you understand Oswald, Ruby, and the single bullet theory, you understand why this case never dies. Who was Lee Harvey Oswald? Born 1939, former U.S. Marine, radar operator, mediocre marksman by Marine standards, troubled childhood, instability, ideological searching, publicly identified as a Marxist in his early 20s. A lot of ideas ruminating around his mind that weren't very American. He was closer to socially isolated, which is not a great thing, seeking meaning, identity, and recognition. So he never really landed on his purpose. That matters because the official story hinges on him being capable of acting alone, not as part of an elite network. The official narrative has painted Oswald as a loner, is troubled, who has military experience, and crazy enough to take out someone who he is ideologically opposed to. The Warren Commission concluded Oswald acted alone because he worked at the Texas School Book Depository. The rifle used was traced back to him, purchased under an alias. The rifle was found on the 6th floor. Cartridge cases matched that rifle. Witnesses placed a man matching Oswald's description on the 6th floor. He fled the scene shortly after the assassination. He killed Officer J.D. Tippit about 45 minutes later. If you killed the president, of course nothing's going to stand in your way trying to get away, even if it's an officer. He attempted to flee Dallas. He resisted arrest. He denied everything but never offered a coherent alternative explanation. That's the marks of a guilty person right there. I'm just going to deny everything, even though I was running away and killed an officer at the same time. The commission found no admissible evidence tying the CIA, the mafia, foreign governments, U.S. officials. It would be hard to catch them and get proof against them if they're the ones who are in possession of the proof. The single bullet theory, aka the magic bullet. Out of 3 shots, 1 missed entirely. 1 bullet entered JFK's upper back, exited through his throat, then struck Governor Connally, shattered a rib, exited his chest, shattered his wrist, lodged in his thigh. Wow, 1 bullet did all that? That's insane. And the 3rd bullet struck JFK's head and was fatal. The controversial claim is number 2. That bullet took a ride. The timing between shots was too short for Oswald to fire more than 3 rounds. Both JFK and Connally were hit almost simultaneously. Ballistics suggested fewer bullets than wounds. It feels like narrative gymnastics. Later reconstructions showed the trajectory as physically possible. This is the hinge point. If the single bullet theory fails, the lone gunman theory collapses. So it was either a magic bullet or there was another shooter that is unidentified. In 1959, Oswald traveled to the USSR. He renounced his U.S. citizenship, symbolically, legally it was murky, tried and failed to become a Soviet citizen, lived in Minsk, worked in a factory, married a Russian woman, Marina, became disillusioned, returned to the U.S. in 1962 with help from the U.S. government. Why would the U.S. government receive him back if he defected and tried to become a citizen of the Soviet Union? Intelligence agencies did monitor defectors closely. Okay, so the CIA is watching Oswald because he's a defector. The Soviets regarded Oswald as unstable and unimpressive. He was never entrusted with sensitive Soviet information. No evidence he was trained or directed by Soviet intelligence. U.S. agencies did keep files on him, but monitoring does not equal control. You can only monitor someone so much. You can't control what they do. Oswald himself, no proven direct ties to organized crime, no mob payments, handlers, or orders identified. He lived in areas with mob activity, New Orleans, Dallas. He was connected socially to people with criminal ties. Doesn't necessarily mean that he worked with the mob. The mafia theory focuses far more on Jack Ruby, had minor mob associations, temperamental, emotional, impulsive. Sounds like Oswald. On November 24th, 1963, live on television, Ruby shot and killed Oswald in the basement of the Dallas Police Department. He said he wanted to spare Jackie Kennedy the trauma of a trial, acted out of grief and rage. Jack Ruby, nightclub owner, loose ties to the mob, killing Oswald permanently silenced the prime suspect. If you didn't want there to be any more hurt and pain, you think that taking someone's life is going to solve the hurt and pain? Doesn't that just cause more? Can't you just let the investigation continue so that we can find out what really happened? So in effect, you kill Oswald, you kill the case. Seems like he's on a mission to silence the case. What information did Oswald have that needed to be silenced? No evidence he was ordered or paid. He was emotionally unstable and impulsive. Interesting, because they said that about Oswald, that he was emotionally unstable and impulsive. So you just put that label onto anybody that you want to claim acted alone. Whatever Jack Ruby did, whatever his motivations are, that's up to speculation upon speculation. For me, what's most important is getting to the idea of what the government thought about Harvey Oswald. Why did the US take Oswald back after he defected? Oswald's defection was mostly symbolic, not legally final. He said he renounced his US citizenship in Moscow, but he never completed the legal process. The State Department still considered him a US citizen. You literally told them that you were done with us, and now our hands are tied. We have to receive you back. It's the legal code. Under U.S. law, citizens have a constitutional right to return home, even embarrassing, unstable, or ideologically hostile ones. Wow, we're just that good of a country. We will humble ourselves and receive a citizen who truly does not want to be here. Their home country, the country they want to defect to, doesn't want them either. We just have to receive someone who doesn't want to be here. The U.S. government issued travel documents, provided a loan for travel expenses, allowed his Soviet wife to immigrate. Why? Letting disillusioned defectors come home was propaganda in America's favor. We received a disillusioned defector to claim that even communism can't keep them. You can't exile citizens for beliefs alone. Returnees were often quietly debriefed. Even low-valley defectors could provide insights. What can you tell us about the Soviet Union? You were over there, tried to defect, what's going on? Oswald was assessed as unimportant, unstable, and low risk. That assessment turned out to be tragically wrong, but it wasn't irrational at the time. Domestic monitoring fell primarily to the FBI. Agencies did not share information well in the 1960s. Oswald just fell through the cracks. Every bit of detail that the CIA had on this guy was not given over to the FBI. The FBI had a file on Oswald, knew he was a Marxist, knew he had defected, knew he was active in pro-Castro circles, knew he was volatile, but he was one of thousands of ideological extremists. He was not part of a known violent group. He had not made a credible threat against the president. You know, nowadays people are like, they telegraph what they're going to do. This guy didn't say anything. So he was categorized as politically annoying, but not imminently dangerous. Hey, we're busy watching the mafia. We're busy watching real criminals. Not this guy who tried to defect and is seen as volatile and unstable, who's a Marxist and doesn't believe in American values. Not that guy. Literally served in the military and still tried to leave the country. Beliefs do not equal crimes. You cannot tail someone 24/7, restrict their employment, prevent them from moving freely without probable cause of a crime. Maybe what this comes down to is problems with our legal system. There were probably plenty of people within the FBI and CIA who saw the dangers of Oswald, but legally you can't constrain him. You can't keep him from going places and living his life, and you can't put all your resources into this basket. The FBI was tracking communists, civil rights radicals, anti-war activists, white supremacists, foreign agents, organized crime. No one seriously believed a former Marine Marxist nobody could assassinate the president in broad daylight. Presidential security itself was shockingly lax by modern standards. Why didn't anyone stop him from working at the depository? Oswald got the job through a casual referral. There was no centralized background check system, again 62 years ago. Employers were not notified of FBI interest. The Secret Service did not vet all buildings or workers along the motorcade route. In 1963, it was normal. JFK's assassination is the reason presidential security looks the way it does today. At this point, I am willing to chalk this up to inefficiencies within our government and within our policies and policing, miscommunication between government agencies like the CIA and FBI. It seems like the perfect storm, like Oswald was the perfect storm. But the one thing that I can't understand is if I grant that Oswald acted alone, he got shot 2 days later by Jack Ruby. That part boggles my mind. Everything had to go right for Oswald to kill the president. But then he killed a police officer. So it just seems like he's really trying to hide something. And then to further cement hiding that information, someone kills him. The official ruling is that this was 62 years ago, and unfortunately, our communication was not as good back then between agencies. We did not look at this guy as a serious enough actor to do something like this. And security detail was not that great for our presidents. In the case of the JFK assassination, hindsight is 2020. Policies were put in place, protections were put in place so that something like this would never happen again. The system wasn't designed to catch isolated, ideologically confused individuals. The FBI was looking at whole groups. There were many dangerous, singular people that could have done something like this. If he never did this, Oswald, a man capable of assassinating the president, is on the loose. He's your neighbor. He's your coworker. That's a scary thought. Unfortunately, there is going to be hindsight is 2020. You can't always stop catastrophe. The government missed it, and this man was allowed to do what he did. There very well may have been other people involved, or people who wanted to be involved, or who had the same idea, but I think that he did act alone, and I do think that there was a serious blunder within government agencies. But the crazy thing is, many other potential single actors are out there that haven't acted yet. In this day and age, 2026, I think it's possible that there are many. It shows itself. Single actors who commit atrocities against innocent people. They are amongst us. Singular people, troubled people, ideologically differentiated people who unfortunately are ready, if given the opportunity, in the right moment, to act upon innocent civilians in a very destructive manner. And I think that's what's most unsettling about the JFK assassination, is that it could be the most unsuspecting, or perhaps even a suspecting person, but again, you can suspect them, but you really don't know. They're dangerous enough, but not dangerous enough. So no, I'm not conspiracized to believe that there's something greater going on, although the big point to get here from this is danger lies all around us. It doesn't matter where you are, what country, what street, you need to be ready. Here's the last thing I want to know, just put it to rest. So what happened to Jack Ruby after he killed Oswald? November 24, 1963, Jack Ruby shoots Lee Harvey Oswald in the basement of the Dallas Police Department. He is arrested on the spot. The killing is broadcast live on national television. From that moment on, Ruby becomes the most important witness in America. March 1964, Ruby goes on trial for murder. The trial is held in Dallas, the same city traumatized and embarrassed by the assassination. Ruby's defense does not seriously pursue an insanity plea. Ruby is convicted of murder, sentenced to death by electrocution. They treated Jack Ruby with all of the brunt of the punishment that belonged to Oswald. While in prison, Ruby becomes increasingly paranoid. He claims people are trying to kill him. He insists there is a larger conspiracy. He asks repeatedly to be moved to Washington, D.C., where he says he will tell the truth. Psychiatrists later concluded Ruby was mentally unstable, likely suffering from psychosis or severe paranoia. 1966, Ruby's conviction is overturned on appeal. He is granted a new trial, this time outside Dallas. January 3rd, 1967, Ruby dies at age 55. Before the retrial, he takes whatever he knew to the grave. Medical records support natural causes. Cancer was advanced and aggressive, no evidence of poisoning or interference. He never named credible planners. He made vague, inconsistent claims. His statements shifted over time. This puts him in a frustrating category, too unstable to trust, too central to ignore. There are so many similarities between Oswald and Ruby. Both of them were like clinically insane. Wild story that roped in Oswald, the CIA, the FBI, United States government, the Soviet Union, Jack Ruby, and the question of what type of safety can we even look forward to if the world at every turn is filled with lone actors who can potentially pop off if given the right opportunity. A warning sign to be prepared for anything, because you just never know what's going to happen or who's around you. 62 years ago, history was changed. The United States was never the same. That is a tragic event that will live on in infamy for the rest of this country's existence. Thanks for watching.